Al-24 Midnight News Edition. And to the headlines. While more than 22 people were injured, at least 15 Palestinians, including 8 women and children, have been killed in a new Zionist air raids on the Gaza Strip. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune received on Tuesday at the Presidential Palace Prince Faisal bin Farhan of Saudi Arabia to discuss ways to strengthen and develop bilateral relations between the two brotherly countries. In the Middle East, and in less than a week from now, presidential elections in Turkey, the challenge becomes tighter between the incumbent President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his contender Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. In Europe, with the real war being waged against Russia, President Vladimir Putin stated in Moscow's Victory Day parade that the world is at a turning point. Hello again and welcome. I'm your host Abdurrahim Kashur, and those were today's top stories. First, starting from the Middle East, the occupation forces in Palestine have killed 2 Palestinians and injured 2 others. The 2 victims were killed in their car when a Zionist airstrike hit their vehicle in the east of Al-Qarara town, north of Khan Yunis city in the southern Gaza Strip. Reports from hospital in the region said that the bodies of the 2 victims were severely burned and injured. The same line of thought, and within this raids, 15 Palestinians, including 3 Palestinian commanders, along with their wives and children in this attack, have been killed. Miriam Zian tackled the story in this report.
With a total of 40 fighter jets, the Zionist occupier bombarded several homes and infrastructure, killing 15 people and leaving 20 others injured, while many suffered from inhaling toxic tear gas in the besieged Gaza Strip. Following the attacks, Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh strongly condemned what he described as horrific massacre.
The aggression against our people in the Gaza Strip is organized state terrorism and an attempt to export the internal crisis that the government of extremism in Israel suffers from. The aggression is a practical translation of the doctrine of killing, incineration, and genocide, which those in power in Israel have long professed.
Several other condemnations were expressed worldwide, including from Jordan, Egypt, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and the United Nations Special Coordinator for Middle East Peace Process. The new series of airstrikes didn't miss shooting children and women in ongoing abusive, barbarous acts, indifferently killing and torturing Palestinians and violating their fundamental rights. With sadness and anger, the heart of Gaza City mourned the killed in the Zionist crimes that have never ceased for 75 years of occupation. The Zionist occupation forces also notified the demolition of a home in order to stop work on a school and another home in the South Hebron Hills, as if the aggression was not enough. Today's airstrikes were the latest incident in more than a year of surging violence that has seen repeated Zionist military raids and escalating cellular violence in the occupied West Bank. And more than 100 Palestinians have been mercilessly killed in the strife since January.
Still with this accident and this new raids, Algeria has strongly condemned airstrikes carried out by the Zionist occupation forces in the Gaza Strip, calling on the international community, especially the UN Security Council, to intervene urgently to stop these criminal attacks and to ensure respect for the rights of the Palestinian people, in the first place, the right to establish an independent state with Al-Quds as its capital, according to a communique by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In Algeria, still the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid, the Minister of the Foreign Affairs of Saudi Arabia, Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud. According to a statement of the Presidency of the Republic, the meeting was attended by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, and the Director of Cabinet at the Presidency of the Republic, Mohammed Nadir Al Arbawi. In a statement following the meeting, the Saudi Foreign Minister stressed that his visit comes to enhance coordination between Algeria and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, especially in relations to Arab issues, given that Algeria is current chair of the Arab Summit.
My visit comes in complementarity and continuity of the strong cooperation and coordination relations existing between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Algeria in all fields, especially with regard to Arab issues, given that Algeria is the current chair of the Arab Summit and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will take over the presidency of the next term. As usual, I found a total convergence of views between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and Algeria.
Bin Farhan also praised the level of cooperation between Algeria and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, stressing that the both countries will continue the momentum.
I felt the will of His Excellency the President to move forward with all fields of bilateral cooperation. There are many opportunities in this regard, notably the strengthening of trade exchanges. There has been a real increase over the last years, and we see opportunities for a further strengthening. We continue to examine other fields of coordination and cooperation. It's undoubtful that coordination and cooperation between the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at the bilateral and multilateral level serve not only our both countries, but also peace and stability in the Arab world and our region more broadly, as well as the whole international community. So we will continue this coordination and cooperation.
And before this reception by the Algerian President, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, has received in Algiers his Saudi counterpart, Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, on the official visit to Algeria. The two sides had face-to-face talks, which were later on extended to the delegations of the two countries during a working session devoted to ways of strengthening fraternity and cooperation relations between Algeria and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the prospects of overcoming the political and security crises that threaten the stability of several Arab states. In a different matter now, on the second day of his visit to the 3rd Military Region, the Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, General Saeed Changari, has supervised a tactical exercise performed with live ammunition by units of the 40th Automatic Infantry Division, supported by combined arms units from different forces. The Algerian Sonatrach Group signed on Tuesday a policy and a code of conduct to fight against corruption and bribery in the complex, and a regionally unique step aimed at promoting an ethical, cultural, or rather culture with company. Marwa Blayor.
The CEO of the Algerian giant group Sonatrach, Toufiq Hakkar, supervised on Tuesday, along with the Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohammed Arqab, the signing ceremony of the Sonatrach anti-corruption and bribery policy and code of conduct, in line with the international standard ISO 37001 anti-bribery management systems.
Sonatrach's adoption of this system will ensure transparency in relations and in making the right decisions, particularly in the management of investment projects, and this for the comfort of credibility of the group, which is more and more present on the world market.
During this ceremony, Toufiq Hakkar signed the Anti-Corruption and Bribery Code of Conduct. The latter provides guidance and defines basic principles and standards for compliance with anti-corruption and bribery provisions and laws, which Sonatrach applies to all its employees, partners and suppliers.
من أجل إضفاء شفافية أكثر
To guarantee greater transparency, Sonatrach Group has adopted a new policy to fight against corruption. This policy establishes rigorous control and ensures transparent management in various activities of the group. Through applying the policy of zero tolerance towards all forms of corruption, in a bid to avoid all ill practices, in order to preserve Sonatrach's reputation.
Sonatrach's anti-corruption and bribery policy includes the company's principles and obligations in this regard and aims to establish control and prevention mechanisms that prohibit corruption and contribute in promoting an ethical setting during the operation of the company's various transactions and activities.
To better apply this policy, Sonatrach has modernized the reporting mechanisms. A platform will be accessible to all users and all partners, making it possible to receive alerts in total confidentiality on actions and behaviors which violate this policy and the relevant laws through a platform called إخطار.
Through the adoption of a policy and a code of conduct to fight against corruption and bribery, which is the first of its kind in Algeria, Sonatrach seeks to promote an ethical culture and establish transparency and good governance in accordance with national and international standards.
Algeria's exports of building materials during the 2022 reached about $1.3 billion, a 56% increase compared to 2021. The Minister of Trade and Export Promotion, Tayyip Zitouni, announced on Tuesday. Mr. Zitouni revealed during a meeting with Algerian exporters in the field of building materials on the sidelines of the 25th edition of the Batimatic 23 exhibition that Algeria exported 12.18 million tons of building materials last year, with a value of approximately $1.3 billion compared to $567 million in 2021. In this regard, Algeria aspires to export more than $1 billion of construction materials by the end of 2023. In Algeria still, Algerian airline, or rather Air Algerie, has warned against spreading false news about the company on social media, threatening to sue rumor mongers in court. The media manager of Air Algerie, Amin Andalusi, stressed that the company has issued more than 20 promotional offers during the current year, with the creation of 175,000 new seats to France and 46,000 seats to the world destinations in these new promotions.
We have revealed several fake news and false information, such as Air Algerie has the monopoly in Algeria. On the contrary, there are over 22 air companies operating and exploiting the Algerian market. Given that the spate of these false videos has stepped up recently, and we are not supporters of the conspiracy theory. However, since the repositioning of Air Algerie in the world market, those videos have increased. We have taken a measure at Air Algerie, which is to resort to justice anytime there is a video that causes harm to the company.
The Swiss Committee for the Support of the Sahrawi People described the choice of independence as the right choice for which the Sahrawis are trying to struggle, waging to struggle. In a statement on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Polisario Front, the committee stressed the need for international community and the United Nations to work with complete freedom despite various Moroccan obstacles in order to enable the Sahrawi people their right to self-determination. In Africa still, Tunisian President Kais Saied said that his country is not a room for rental or sale, as he put it, stressing that Tunisia will make it its way without any foreign interference. During a meeting with Prime Minister Najla Bouden, Saied underlined that the Tunisian people are capable of overcoming the great challenges they face away from any foreign interference, referring to stalled negotiations with international financial bodies to obtain emergency funds.
نعلم أننا اليوم في مواجهة تحديات كبيرة
I am aware that today we are facing huge challenges, but I am convinced that we will overcome all these challenges. We will never deny our commitments to the people. We want to make our way together without any foreign interference. Our sovereignty is not a mere word, and Tunisia is not a room for rental or sale. We want to make a new way in history, and whoever thinks that they can make our way for us, they are delusional.
Washington renewed its support for the political process facilitated by the United Nations that leads to organizations of early elections in Libya. This came during a virtual meeting that brought together the head of the Presidential Council, Mohammed Al-Menfi, with the U.S. Special Envoy to Libya, Richard Norland. U.S. Special Envoy to Libya said that he discussed with the head of the Libyan Presidential Council the necessity of strengthening national reconciliation projects in addition to establish a joint military force to secure southern borders and setting up national mechanisms to organize public spending priorities and ensure that all Libyan people benefit from oil revenues. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Tuesday said that the United States will not give up on the goal of putting Sudan back on the track to civilian democratic governance, adding that Washington is working in talks in Jeddah to extend the ceasefire and get agreement on the provision of humanitarian aid. Talks began Saturday between the army and the rival paramilitary rapid support forces in the Saudi Red Sea city of Jeddah.
We continue to engage directly with Sudanese civilian leaders, with Sudanese civil society, with the goal of putting their nation back on the track to civilian democratic governance. That's the goal that we share and a goal that we will not give up on. Together now we are pressing the warring parties in Sudan to put down their guns and allow life-saving aid to reach the Sudanese people.
Foreign ministers of Turkey and Syria will hold their first official meeting this Wednesday since the beginning of the crisis in Syria. A statement from the Turkish Foreign Ministry said that talks in Moscow will also involve the top diplomats of Russia and Iran. The statement added that it is planned to exchange views on normalization of relations between Turkey and Syria and to discuss counter-terrorism, political process and humanitarian matters, including the voluntary, safe and dignified return of Syrians. Turkey's upcoming presidential election is generating unprecedented uncertainty among voters. Observers of Turkish affairs are predicting that the outcome of the election may be the most important in history of the republic. With just a few days left before the election, both the ruling party and opposition are fighting to keep the voters on their sides. Hassan Burkan.
President Erdogan, confident of winning another term, is meeting large crowds of supporters in the final days of campaign. However, opinion polls suggest that his chances are close to those of his most prominent contender, Kılıçdaroğlu, who is entering the election arena supported by a unified opposition front. The sharp decline in the value of lira against the dollar is a significant issue in this election. The opposition has focused on this data and labeled it as unforgivable economic failure, hoping to influence the attitude of voters, particularly young people who were born and raised during the rule of the Justice and Development Party. Erdogan's approach has been focused on highlighting the achievements made during his tenure in office. This strategy has reduced the power of the opposition's claims about the economic crisis. However, the devastating earthquake that recently hit large parts of the south of the country has introduced an unexpected factor into the election campaign. Both the ruling party and the opposition have attempted to explode the disaster, but it remains to be seen how this will affect the final outcome.
We cannot be ready for elections in this environment. We are not ready for the election in any sense. We and thousands like us aren't at all ready for the election. Elections are taking place prematurely.
The refugee file is another issue that the opposition has played on in an attempt to influence Turkish voters. The opposition blames the Justice and Development Party for the consequences of the open-door policy of refugees, claiming that it has cost Turkey a lot. The ruling party has taken a series of measures, including determining the number of refugees and working to return them to their homeland to address this issue. With just few days left ahead of the election, both the ruling party and the opposition are fighting hard to keep voters on their side. The result of this election will be a decisive factor in determining Turkey's political future and the path of President Erdogan, who has been in power for more than 20 years.
And from Turkey to Russia, where they have celebrated the 78th Victory Day in a big ceremony at the Red Square in Moscow. During the parade, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that Russians were united in a sacred fight with the West over Ukraine. Nabil Khazini.
Every year, same day, same time. All eyes are directed here to Moscow's Red Square. The spectacle of the 9th of May, or Victory Day, is a day to remember the triumph of the Soviet Union over Nazi Germany nearly 8 decades ago, and to show the grandeur of Russia. 10,000 troops, including fighters of the special military operation in Ukraine, and more than 100 of items of military hardware, all took part in one of the most important celebrations in Russia and before in the Soviet Union. Heads of state of former Soviet allies flew to Moscow to attend this year's historic event, which was particularly special, just like the one of last year. This time, the military spectacle comes as Russia is fighting for 14 months in a fierce war in Ukraine. For the Russian leader, this is a security matter.
A real war is once again being waged against our homeland, but we have fought back against international terrorism. We will also protect the people of the Donbass and ensure our security.
A turning point and a patriotic struggle. This is how the Russian president described today's world for the Russians. The parade was also a chance for him to assail the enemy, the West, for unleashing a real war against his country.
The Western globalist elites, however, still preach about their exceptionalism. They are pitting people against each other and dividing society, provoking bloody conflicts and coups, sowing hatred, Russophobia, aggressive nationalism, destroying the traditional family values that make people human.
For the Russians, this is a day to remember the glorious past of the old generations and to think of the coming triumphs for the nation.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has marked Europe Day in Ukraine's capital in Kiev, with President Volodymyr Zelensky, the head of the European Commission, discussed Ukraine's integration into Europe and new Russian sanctions. She also said that the European Union is establishing a coordination platform aiming at transporting grain transparently and with the lowest price possible from Ukraine to the EU.
The immediate priority now is that the grain transit goes seamlessly and at the lowest possible cost outside from Ukraine towards the European Union. This requires a very close cooperation of the different stakeholders. Therefore, we will jointly set up a coordination platform so that we will get these solidarity lanes fully functioning. Again, this is important.
In an interview published by the Spanish daily El País on Tuesday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said peace negotiations to end the conflict in Ukraine were not possible at this moment. His statements came as the leaders of Russia and Ukraine both called for victory during events commemorating the end of the World War II. Guterres told El País that the UN was instead focusing on talks with both Russia and Ukraine to solve the concrete problems, such as extending the Black Sea grain deal that is set to expire on May 18.
Unfortunately, I believe that at this stage, a peace negotiation is not possible. Both sides are convinced that they can win. At the moment, I don't see any possibility of achieving immediately. We're not talking about the future. A comprehensive ceasefire, a peace negotiation.
Ending up our news edition with the UEFA Champions League news and the semi-final, where Kevin De Bruyne equalized for Manchester City side in the semi-final against Real Madrid after Vinicius Jr. gave the host and the title holder Real Madrid lead at the Santiago Bernabeu. City were beaten by Madrid in dramatic circumstances in last season's semi-final, but this time they began by dominating the action, with Thibaut Courtois making saves to deny De Bruyne and Rodri from opening the score. And at the 38th minute, the Brazilian Vini scored the first goal for El Merengue by an out-of-bounds shot, while the Belgian De Bruyne tied the score in the second half after a stunning shot outside the penalty area to keep the game a thriller from the second leg next week at Manchester City Stadium, Al Ittihad. What a game. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for being with us. For more updates, you can follow our social media platform. And all I can say at the end, take care of yourself. Good night.